Hey guys, tonight we take a long, whispery walk through one of the oldest and least well-lit graveyards this side of History Hollow Ridge Cemetery. Picture it, wrought iron gates that groan when the wind nudges them, trees that creak like they're trying to remember something, and headstones so old the names have worn away like bad secrets. The air's thick with the kind of mist that clings to your skin and reminds you that you're absolutely not alone. You probably won't survive this well, not without at least a shiver or two. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I always love seeing how far and wide these stories wander. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step off the gravel path, the crunch of your boots muted by a low fog that hugs the ground like an old ghost clinging to your ankles. Hollow Ridge looks smaller on the map, but standing here now, it seems to stretch forever in every direction. You check your phone, no signal, because of course there's no signal land. The screen flickers like it's considering giving up entirely. The air is damp, not rainy, but just wet enough to make your hair feel like it's growing moss. The cemetery gate behind you lets out a rusty screech as it swings shut. You didn't touch it. Cool. Great start. You squint ahead and notice how the headstones lean at odd angles, like they're whispering to each other behind your back. One cracked obelisk actually seems to tilt toward you as you pass. The plaque reads J. Whitaker, 1812, with no death date, just a question. Mark. Someone didn't get the memo. They were dead. Classic Whitaker. Historians still argue whether Whitaker was a war deserter or a double agent who faked his death and was buried empty as a warning. Either way, it said the question mark wasn't carved, just appeared one night. Neat. Trick for limestone. Further in. Your flashlight starts to dim. You shake it, and it brightens again, reluctantly. Something about this graveyard eats light, literally. You try not to notice how your shadow is about 2 steps behind you, even though your body hasn't stopped moving. You chalk it up to the fog and keep walking. Yeah, that'll work. An owl hoots, but it's off. Too low, like someone imitating an owl from memory. You pause. The hoot repeats, exactly the same. No variation. You turn and see 2 amber glints among the trees. Eyes reflected. Maybe it's that weird deer people talk about seeing out hither. one with too many knees and not enough face. You pass by a plot surrounded by rusted fencing, the spikes of which are bent outward, like something left rather than tried to keep people out. The name on the central tombstone is scrawled in looping cursive, Vale, and right behind it, just barely readable under the moss you spot Thomas. Vale, Vale. That name itches something in the back of your brain. Didn't the podcast mention that guy? Thomas Vale, buried without a service, rumored to have never actually died. Local law says he made a pact to be buried alive, to wait out time until the stars aligned again. Stars, right. The sky overhead is unusually clear for a foggy night. The constellations are wrong. The Orion's belt looks like it's missing a few notches. Your boot catches on something and you stumble straight into a cold patch of ground that seems to suck the warmth right through your jacket. It's not wet, not muddy, just wrong. The grass is brittle here, even though the rest of the cemetery is overgrown and lush, and the headstone nearby isn't listed on the cemetery registry, if you're remembering the brochure right. You know, the one you glanced at before your flashlight flickered out for good. Your eyes adjust. The headstone is crooked violently, so and shoves up from the earth at a sharp angle. You almost swear it's breathing. You lean closer and see that the name etched into the stone isn't Thomas Vale. It's your name, like your full name. Middle name, too. The letters shimmer for a second, as though they haven't decided if they should be there yet. And underneath, the date of death. Today's date. You blink. It's gone. Just stone again. You take a slow step back and feel your heels sink into something softer than soil. You turn and see a bouquet fresh roses, damp with dew, and ribboned in black lace nestled beside a photo frame. The photo, it's of you. Same jacket, same boots, standing in this very cemetery. You don't remember taking it. As you lean closer to the photo, something brushes your ankle. You flinch and spin, but there's nothing there except a rustle behind the nearest tree. You tell yourself it's a raccoon, a historical raccoon. Did you know ancient Romans buried pet monkeys in their gardens as status symbols? Completely unrelated. But maybe someone buried a pet monkey here and it's just checking on you. With your luck, it's the ghost of a monkey gladiator. Rest in pieces, little guy. You pull your jacket tighter and press on, telling yourself that grave markers sometimes glitch in old cemeteries. Happens all the time. Stone erosion likens that, and the fact that the veil between worlds is thinnest during the last half of the night, especially around places like Hollow Ridge, built on ley lines and former battlefields. You don't realize you've been circling back until you spot the same iron gate again. Only now it's locked. A heavy chain crosses the front, wrapped tight with a rusted padlock you're certain wasn't there when you arrived. And taped to the gate is a single white index card, curling at the edges. 3 words are scrawled in red, not done yet. You back away, and the cemetery stretches again. Pathways you didn't take now lead off in directions that shouldn't exist. The fog thickens. The names on the headstones shift when you glance at them, and something is pacing you, always 3 rows over, always just out of view, and you haven't even reached the chapel yet. The crooked headstone of Thomas Vale is still there behind you, and you swear you can feel its slant pull at your spine like a magnet dragging a compass off course. You step away quickly, back toward the twisted gravel path, hoping to find firmer ground and less personalized grave markers. But the deeper you walk into Hollow Ridge, the more things feel off. Your footsteps start to sound like someone else's, just a beat too slow. And when you stop, you hear that half-step echo, like a kid mimicking you. But without the joy, the path curls unnaturally left, like it's resisting geometry. You follow anyway because, well, what else are you going to do? Climb the Rotiran fence and impale yourself on decorative spikes. Bold choice, but maybe save it for after midnight snack time. Eventually, you come upon a part of the cemetery that looks older, more forgotten. The stones here are half sunken and overgrown, as if the earth decided to reclaim its mistakes. One particular grave pulls your eye, not because it's grand or new, but because it looks angry. The headstone tilts so sharply it's nearly horizontal, like it's clawing its way back into the ground. Thick ivy coils up its side like a hangman's noose, but the engraved name is perfectly clear: Thomas Vale. Again, the inscription underneath is just one sentence: he knew too much to rest. Well, that's not ominous at all. You crouch to read more, but there's nothing else. No birth date, no death, just the one sentence and the unmistakable chill of standing somewhere you're not welcome. You know that feeling you get when you walk into a room and forget what you were looking for, but multiplied by 10 and spiked with dread. Thomas Vale. Local lore paints him as a turn-of-a-century mystic, or possibly a fraud. depending on who you ask. He was buried 3 times, the story goes, but each time the body didn't stay put. Some say he cursed his own bones to stay restless. Others say he was buried alive the first time, and the trauma warped reality around his grave. Historians still argue whether he was a failed spiritualist or an unrecognized genius who predicted a celestial alignment that would, quote, undo death. His grave has been moved twice, and yet somehow it always returns to the original plot. Like the cemetery itself won't let him go. You reach out, lightly brushing your fingers over the headstone's edge. It's warm, not sun-warmed, not residual heat, warm. No, it's skin warm. Like touching someone's arm after they've been sleeping. You recoil, but not fast enough. The ivy moves. You could have sworn it just shifted in the wind. Except there is no wind. The cemetery is dead quiet, not even bugs. You look closer and see that the ivy isn't growing from the ground, it's feeding from the stones. Small crimson buds pulse like tiny hearts along its length. You back away, fast. The headstone groans like settling wood, but you know stone doesn't do that, unless it's hollow or hiding something. Further down the row, you spot a marker that reads, Fieldstone, family plot. You move past it, careful not to step directly on any graves, because even if you don't believe, let's not poke the corpse bed. As you walk, you catch another name, T. Vale. Again, different stone, different font. You don't even check the rest, you know, it says the same thing. He knew too much to rest. That's 3 Vale stones so far. And then, out of nowhere, you hear the laugh. It's faint at first, feminine, drifting like perfume in the dark. You freeze. It comes again closer, high, breathy, almost playful, not comforting. You look around, and there, about 20 yards ahead, you see her, a woman, standing beneath an arch of dead roses, wearing an old-fashioned morning dress, all jet black lace and stiff velvet. You know she sees you, but she doesn't wave or speak. She just tilts her head, slowly, like a puppet hanging on an invisible string. You've read about mourning dresses before. In the Victorian era, women wore them for up to 2 years after losing a husband. Some were even sewn with strands of the deceased's hair. Totally normal behavior, right? Yeah, people back then collected teeth, too. The woman raises one hand and points toward the crooked headstone behind you. Her lips move, but the sound doesn't carry. You glance back. The headstone is upright now, perfectly vertical. That should not be possible. You turn back toward the woman gone. Just fog now, and the faint smell of rose water. A moment later, you hear that same half-step echo behind you again. Except this time, it's not behind you. It's beside you. You glance right, nothing. You glance left. There's a second headstone there now. It wasn't there before. You step closer, against all better judgment, and see that the engraving is halfway done, literally, like the stonemason just gave up mid-jab. But what is carved is enough. Your initials, followed by a blank, and below it a single engraved phrase, reserved by request of T-Vale. You step back, heart drumming so loud in your ears that it nearly drowns out the rustling behind you. You don't turn. Few just walk fast. The cemetery seems to fold in on itself paths, shifting, stones multiplying, fog thickening like soup someone forgot on the stove. You see the angel statue up ahead and sigh in relief. You remember that angel you passed. It on the way in, except no, you didn't. This one's weeping. Its hands cover its face, and the stone where its heart would be is cracked open. Something's been taken out, or maybe it climbed out. You can't tell. You edge around it, giving it wide berth, and head toward what you hope is a central path again. You pass one last veil grave, this one smashed, like something tried to claw its way out from the inside. You wonder, suddenly, how many people have walked this path before you. How many saw their names on stones? How many made it out? The air grows colder, the night darker, and from somewhere ahead, a soft light flickers lantern orange, like a flame that hasn't realized it should have gone out 100 years ago. You move toward the light because, really, what else is there? A random lantern flickering in a graveyard at night should be a red flag. But compared to graves bearing your name and ivy that pulses like it has a heartbeat, this feels almost welcoming. Almost. The path narrows as you go, crunching under your feet with that satisfying gravel sound that normally might be soothing, except here it's too loud, like your footsteps are being amplified on purpose, like someone wants to know exactly where you are as you draw closer. You realize the lantern is swinging gently from a low branch of an old cypress tree. The bark is peeling in long, fibrous strips, and the branches hang low, as if shielding something, or hiding it. And then you hear it, a whisper, not a breeze. Not the rustle of leaves, an actual whisper. Your name, not in a scream, not a threat. Just a gentle, coaxing tone, like a mother waking a sleeping child. Only you're wide awake, and there's absolutely no one around. Or so you thought. You freeze, from beneath the base of the cypress tree. A figure begins to rise slowly, like a marionette being lifted by invisible strings. She's wearing a high-necked morning dress, face mostly veiled, but even in the flickering lantern glow, you can make out the hollow beneath her cheekbones. She's not floating. She's not gliding. She's climbing from somewhere under the tree, somewhere under the ground. You want to run, but the ground under you has turned soft, spongy. Every step feels like it takes twice the effort. She doesn't speak, just stares, and then she gestures. One slow finger points behind you. You turn, instinctually, and see nothing, just more headstones in silhouette. But when you turn back, she's gone again, like smoke folding into the roots. You blink and realize you're standing right next to the tree now, directly under the lantern, and just below it, set into the dirt, is a worn wooden marker, barely legible. Mary Ellen Vale, died 1863. Body never found. There's no formal headstone, just the wood and an impression in the earth that feels too fresh for a 160-year-old grave. You kneel to get a better look, and suddenly the ground under your palm shifts. Not collapses, shifts. Like something underneath it moved in reaction to your touch. You shoot to your feet, and that's when you notice the roots. They aren't roots. They look like roots. Gray and snaking through the dirt, but they feel dry and porous, and one of them has a fingernail. Well, that's not ideal. You take 3 fast steps back and bump into something. Solid human height, cloth, cold. You spin. It's not the woman. It's a man this time. Also in funeral wear, though much bubble, face sunken, lips blue-black, like they've been chewing ink. You don't even have time to scream. He just puts one finger to his lips in that universal she gesture and fades into the mist like a magician's assistant. You're breathing hard now, and not just from fear. The air is denser, heavier, like being underwater. The kind of atmosphere, they say, comes just before a spirit materializes fully. According to 19th century spiritualists and TikTok witches, extreme atmospheric pressure changes often precede full apparitions. So yeah, that bodes well. You press on. ducking under the cypress canopy and emerging on the other side into a section of the cemetery that looks untouched by time. No moss, no decay. The graves are neat, the flowers fresh, too fresh. One bouquet even has a price tag still on it, from today. And then you see her again, the woman in mourning. She's standing beside one of the graves, lantern in hand, though no flame burns inside it now. Her veil is drawn back. She's beautiful in that way porcelain dolls are beautiful, delicate, lifeless, and ready to blink when you look away. She turns her gaze to you, and this part is important smiles. You're not sure which is worse, the weeping statue or the smiling ghost. You open your mouth to speak something polite like evening, M.A.M., because manners still matter, even in the afterlife. But before you can make a sound, she begins to hum a lullaby, sweet, familiar. Then you realize you've heard it before. It's your mother's favorite, the one she used to sing when you had nightmares. The humming stops. The woman fades, leaving the lantern behind, burning again. Inside it, there's a folded piece of parchment. You reach in and carefully unfold it. It's a funeral program, in loving memory of your name, service to be held when the body is found. The photo, you again, same as before. Only this time, your eyes are closed. You start to crumple the program, but the moment you do, the wind picks up finally. A breeze, and it begins swirling the dry leaves around your feet into a spiral. At first, it's just creepy. Then it becomes something more. A pattern forms at your fetus sigil, old and crude, burned into the earth. Historians still argue whether this specific sigil is Mesopotamian in origin or a 17th century forgery invented by a failed alchemist trying to impress a duchess with necromantic flair. Either way, it's not exactly something you want to be standing on barefoot during a lightning storm. Not that you're barefoot, yet you scramble away from the spiral and trip over a headstone you hadn't noticed. The inscription simply reads, "Return what was taken." You whisper what was taken, before you even realize you're saying it aloud, and the answer comes, a whisper, barely audible, from under the soil. You stumble backward from the whisper, half expecting the soil to crack open and a bony hand to reach out, dramatic horror movie style, but it doesn't. The ground stays closed, still, and somehow more terrifying for it. You strain your ears, waiting for another whisper, another sign, but nothing. Just the same dense, syrupy silence that feels like it's listening back. You catch your breath and glance around, trying to reorient yourself. The trees are denser now. The orderly path is gone. The graves are no longer rows of tidy headstones, but scattered, sunken plots with slanted markers and overgrown mounds that look more like bumps on the skin of something buried alive than actual graves. You edge forward, slowly, no sudden movements, no breathing too loud, just enough motion to keep from freezing entirely. To your left, a rusty iron sign leans sideways in the grass. You wipe the grime away and read the flaking letters. The Pauper's Corner, burials without ceremony. Your stomach twists. This was where they dumped the bodies of the poor, the unclaimed, the forgotten. No caskets, no gravestones, just pits, sometimes shared. It's where they put people they didn't want to remember. Some were buried with no clothes, others with wrong names, and occasionally with no names at all. You step carefully between the depressions in the earth, knowing each one could be a home to something or someone that never got to leave properly. A faint melody reaches your ears again, that lullaby, but this time it's not a hum. It's a music box, tinkling softly, slightly off-key, like it's been dropped too many times. You follow it, because, again, why not chase the cursed tune into a pit of literal forgotten souls? Seems reasonable. You find the box in the crook of a tree root, partly buried in dead leaves. It's silver, tarnished, with initials scratched onto the lid. E.V. Mary Ellen Vale. Of course, you don't open it. Not yet. You're not sure why, but some ancient part of you whispers, "Not here." And for once, you listen. You pocket it carefully. That then dash footsteps. Not yours. Not the echo you've been hearing. These are solid, squishy, wet, like someone walking barefoot in swamp mud. You freeze. From the corner of your eye, you see a man, or what's left of one. He's crawling dragging himself across the ground, arms moving, but legs trailing limp behind. His mouth opens and closes like he's speaking, but there's no sound. His skin has that bloated, waterlogged look, pale and waxy, like cheap Halloween decor that's spent too many seasons in a damp attic. You take a step back. His head snaps toward you. You don't wait. You run. The air gets thicker again, just like before. And then the trees part suddenly, and you're in a clearing. Moonlight pours down here like a spotlight, shining on a stone circle at the center. Old, cracked stones arranged in a pattern that looks wrong, unnatural. You feel pulled to it, like gravity but sideways. You don't want to go, but your feet drag forward, slower with every step. It's like walking through syrup, thick and resistant. You realize you're crying. You don't even know when it started. Just slow, silent tears, running hot down your cheeks. Your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. You reach the center and drop to your knees, not by choice, like the ground demanded it. At the center of the circle is another grave marker. Unlike the others, it's perfectly clean, white marble, freshly carved, and on it, the one who saw the gate. No name, no date, just that you reach out and brush your fingers across it. Your vision blurs. For a second, you're not in the cemetery anymore. You're somewhere underneath it. Stone walls, dirt ceiling, candles flickering without flames. A circle of hooded figures, all humming that lullaby in unison. Voices low and vibrating. At the center yourself, laid out on a slab, eyes open but unmoving, chest still, skin gray. You blink dot back in the clearing. Same moonlight, same grave. But now, you hear them dot all around the circle. Soft voices, layered, male, female, young, old, whispering, chattering, laughing. The sounds surround you like a cloud of nets. One voice cuts through. Return it. The music box. You know it instinctively. Your fingers shake as you pull it from your pocket. It's humming softly on its own now. You open the lid. Inside, a tiny figure in black lace, spinning slowly, arms raised in mourning. You blink again, her eyes open. The doll's not yours. She stares straight at you. Then the ground trembles, just slightly, enough to set dust to dancing and leaves to skittering away. The trees seem to lean closer. Historical records from the 1800s speak of rituals performed in forest graveyards to seal breaches between life and the unnamed, often involving music, personal relics, and sacrifice. Historians still argue whether these rituals were symbolic or deadly serious, but in this moment, you're pretty sure this one isn't symbolic. The whispers grow louder. The figure in the box spins faster, and then it stops. The doll crumples. The box slams shut on its own. The silence returns brutal and immediate. No breeze. No hum, no voices, just you kneeling in the circle, holding a dead music box. You exhale, finally. Then the marble grave splits down the center, not explodes, not shatters, splits like a fault line opening slowly. A long crack from top to bottom, inside blackness, not dirt, not stone, just empty dot. And from the empty, a shape begins to rise slowly, silently. A shape in black lace, her head tilted just slightly, lips curved in a smile too wide for comfort. Mary Ellen Vale, you do not scream. Screaming would make it real. Instead, you hold perfectly still, like one of those kids in nature documentaries, hoping the predator just loses interest. But Mary Ellen Valiff, that's really her, hasn't taken her eyes off you. Not once. She rises from the grave, cracked like a ghost climbing out of her own reflection. Her dress doesn't rustle. Her hair doesn't move in the breeze that suddenly decides to reappear. How polite of it. Everything about her seems frozen in time, except her face, which has started to change. Subtly, her smile curls just a little more. Her eyes grow darker, not in color, in depth. Like her gaze could tunnel straight through your skull and come out the other side with answers you didn't know you had. She reaches out a hand. It's a gesture both tender and terrifying, like a mother inviting a child to cross a busy street. Without looking both ways, you stagger back, but your foot slips on the mossy stone. You fall hard, elbow jarring, spine hitting the edge of the broken marble. You hear something crack, but it's probably just your pride or your sanity. Hard to tell. Above you, Mary Ellen pauses, her expression unreadable, and then she does something you absolutely didn't expect. She speaks. Wrong place. She says softly, voice like pages turning in a damp book. Wrong time. Then she fades, not all at once, slowly, like fog being reabsorbed into the air. Her final features melt into nothing, leaving behind only the scent of something ancient, pressed flowers and grave dirt. You're alone again, almost, because from the open grave you hear movement, scraping, something single quotes crawling toward the edge from the other side. Not her, something else. And this time you do scream. You scramble up, ignoring the fire in your joints, and bolt from the clearing. You don't care which direction. You don't care what's ahead. Anything is better than what's trying to claw its way out of that marble slot in the earth. You crash through brambles and low branches, past mossy angels with broken wings and crucifixes twisted sideways by time. The cemetery doesn't end, just keeps going, like it's adjusting itself to your panic, like it knows you're trying to leave and is personally offended. Eventually, you trip over something and go sprawling, face first, into cold mud. When you push yourself up, you realize you've landed on another grave. This one has no name, only number. 2438. And above the number, carved hastily and unevenly, body never found. You've seen this phrase before. Twice now. You sit back, breathing hard, staring at the number, when you hear a sharp click, a spotlight, a literal, old-timey spotlight, like from a theater, has turned on nearby, illuminating a small stone chapel you swear wasn't there. Seconds ago, it's short and square, with stained glass windows that glow faintly from the inside. You can hear organ music playing badly, like someone who's only half committed to learning. You creep toward the building, because why not? It seems your fight or flight response has tapped out and gone home. All that's left now is curiosity, and maybe a bit of grim resignation. The chapel door creaks open by itself when you touch it. Of course it does. Dot inside. Pews line the room, filled with mannequins in black funeral attire, straight mannequins, plastic faces, expressionless, all turned toward the front where a closed casket rests. You step inside, and the door slams behind you. You don't jump this time. You're honestly too tired. You walk slowly up the aisle, mannequins watching, not moving, but watching. You half expect one to blink. One might. You refuse to look long enough to find out. You reach the casket and read the brass plaque. In loving memory, no name. You look closer. There's a mirror built into the top of the linoleum. Victorian custom, so mourners could see themselves and reflect on mortality. But this mirror shows you as you are now. Dirt streaked, pale, terrified, and behind you, just for a flicker Mary Ellen's face. You spin round. Nothing, dot, nothing, dot. You turn back to the mirror. Different now. The reflection is no longer your face. It's the same one from the funeral pamphlet. Eyes closed. Still dead. You open the casket. Before you know what you're doing, it's empty. Until it is. Single quotes. T. One blink later. It's full of soil. Damp, rich, grave soil. And something begins to rise from within. It slowly, silently. You slam the lid shut, not because you think that will help, just because it feels like the right thing to do. In Victorian England, they used to install bells on graves just in case someone was buried alive. Safety coffins, they called them. Totally normal, totally chill. One quirky model even included a periscope and a feeding tube. Historians still argue whether most of these were actual precaution or just marketing gimmicks for rich hypochondriacs with overactive imaginations. Either way, you wish this coffin had a bell right now, because you're absolutely not okay. The chapel door creaks open, again inviting you to leave. You take the hint. Outside. The moon's gone. The stars too. All that remains is fog, but it's thinner now. More navigable. You walk back toward where you think you came from. The cemetery has changed. Again less chaotic, more symmetrical. You recognize one or two of the older headstones. The names are still wrong, but the layout feels familiar. Then, from behind a large stone mausoleum, you hear the sound of a shovel, digging, steady, rhythmic. You round the corner and see an old man, stooped, hunched, classic gravedigger, coat, boots, wide-brimmed hat. He doesn't look up. You ask, "Excuse me." He keeps digging. You repeat yourself, louder this time. He stops, straightens, turns, and smiles. You don't know this man, but he knows you, and he says just 3 words. "We've been waiting." You freeze, because what else can you do when a man who smells like fresh-turned soil tells you he's been waiting out here in the midnight fog, shovel in hand, standing by an open grave? You try to respond, maybe something clever, maybe something firm, something to reassert reality, but your mouth goes dry, and all that comes out is a half cough, half whimper, not exactly a power move. The gravedigger doesn't seem offended. He just tips his head, the brim of his hat hiding most of his face except the smile. It doesn't reach his eyes. You're not even sure he has eyes. "We didn't think you'd come early," he adds, as casually as someone greeting a neighbor. "Bye in line for coffee." But then again, early's better than late. He gestures to the grave. No, not a grave. Your grave. The headstone is plain, but polished. The date today, your name, well, not your real one, but close enough to twist something deep in your stomach. Like someone tried to remember you after a very long time and got just enough wrong to make it worth you step back. The gravedigger doesn't follow. He goes back to work, whistling an old tune that sounds vaguely like Swing Low. sweet chariot, except it dips into something older and less gospel. Something that belongs to the dirt. Fun fact. In the 1700s, whistling in graveyards was considered an invitation to keep the spirits company, they said. Some versions suggested it warded off evil. Others claimed it invited something to walk beside you. You decide not to test the theory. You bolt again, feet sliding across damp grass and patches of wet moss. The headstones blur past you, some newer, some so old they've eroded into nothing but nubs. And then there it is. Gate dot the entrance. But the iron bars are twisted now, melted, bent outward, as if something broke in or broke out. You reach it and try to squeeze through, but a chill races up your spine. The air around the gate is different, heavier, like trying to breathe through cotton. Behind you, the gravedigger hums louder. Not close, but not far either. You turn to look and he's gone. Instead, standing in his place are 3 children, silent, staring. They're in funeral clothes, old-fashioned, black wool, starched collars, laced gloves. One holds a wilted flower, another a candle that doesn't flicker. The third just stands, hands empty, eyes locked on yours with an expression too calm for comfort. Children at cemeteries are already unsettling enough in broad daylight, but these 3 feel wrong, not malevolent, not overtly, but too quiet, too still. You try to speak, ask if they're lost. The tallest lifts a hand and points behind you. You turn, and this time you do scream, because the trees are gone, the graves are gone, the world is gone. You're standing in a hallway now long narrow, lit by flickering lanterns on hooks. The walls are stone, the ceiling low. It smells like mildew and chalk. You know immediately where you are. The catacombs. Not Paris, not Rome. Somewhere older, somewhere beneath all of them. You walk forward because backward no longer exists. The air grows colder. The bones in the walls, yes. Bones are arranged in intricate patterns. Crosses, spirals, symbols you can't name. Skulls stare from the gaps between femurs and ribs. One of them looks at you. Actually looks. You keep moving. One of the fringe theories about ancient burial tunnels suggests they were more than repositories for bones. Some scholars believe they served as maps, guides through spiritual realms or even time itself. Historians still argue whether these catacombs were ever truly navigated by the living, or just poetic metaphors. But tonight, You're the metaphor. Congratulations. You come to a chamber in the center. A single chair, sitting in a tierce. Mary Ellen Vale. She's dressed in modern clothes now. Jeans, sweater, Converse, sneakers. Still pale, still ethereal, but very much here. She gestures to the floor. Sit, you hesitate. She raises an eyebrow, and without speaking, you know, either you sit, or you lie down permanently. So you sit. I need you to remember, she says, before it happens again. You try to ask what, but your voice sticks. Your jaw moves. No sound comes out. Typical dream logic, except this isn't a dream. You gave up the luxury of disbelief an hour ago. She touches your forehead with one cold fingertip, and suddenly you're on a boat. Fog curls around the deck. Water sloshes against wood. Ahead, an island, small, tree-covered, no lights, just a single stone building in the center, like a lighthouse with no beam. Next to you stands the gravedigger. He's rowing. We never made it off, he says, and then you're in a house. Storm pounding the windows. Candles flickering in dark corners. You hold a letter. It reads, "Don't trust the ones who dig. Trust the ones who sleep." And then you're in a hospital. Sterile white beeping machines. A woman weeps in the hallway. Through the door, a body on a gurney, covered dot. You look down at your own arms bandaged, fingers trembling. The body on the gurney. You know it's you. Dot, and then you're back in the catacomb chamber. Mary Ellen watches you. Every time we forget. She says, we have to try again. You ask finally, what do I need to remember? She smiles. That there was never a funeral. And then everything breaks. Stone cracks. Lanterns burst. Bones tumble. The entire catacomb collapses inward, and you fall with it deeper, deeper, until there is no down, only motion. And still you hear her voice. Next time, sooner than silence. You wake up face down in grass, your mouth full of moss and the faint taste of copper. Above you, stars, real ones this time. No fog, no distorted heavens, just the sky stretched wide and dark, as if the world finally remembered how to behave. You sit up slowly. Every muscle groans in protest, like it's been 1,000 years since you last moved. Your neck pops, your jaw aches. You feel like you've been hit by a bus, and then comforted with a polite pamphlet about spiritual rebirth around you. The cemetery dot, but quieter now. normal, even. Except nothing's ever been normal since you stepped through that first gate. And right now, you're sitting in front of plot 2438. Again, same stone, same engraving. That little note, body never found. But someone's added something new, handwritten, probably with a nail or sharp bone. You're not done. You shiver, not because it's cold, though it is, but because that message wasn't meant to scare you. It was meant to remind you. You look to your left and flinch. Someone's standing there. But it's not Mary Ellen. It's the boy from the trio, the candle holder. No flame now, just wax melted to his fingertips. His expression is calm. He says nothing, just nods once, as if confirming you're finally where you're supposed to be. Then he turns and walks away, his footsteps making no sound at all. You follow. You don't want to, but what choice do you really have? He leads you past rows of graves, some marked, others just sunken patches with no names. A few have unusual objects on the mold shoes, broken clocks, mason jars with faded photos. You pass one grave that has a harmonica placed neatly on top. Weird, definitely. But back in 1897, leaving personal items on graves was common in some parts of Appalachia. Historians still argue whether this practice was symbolic or a misguided attempt at magical protection. Either way, you're not touching anything. Finally, the boy stops at a mausoleum. Dot, unlike the others' Gothic crumbling, this one is almost clinical. Smooth concrete, a brushed metal plaque, no crosses, no angels, just a triangle etched into the door. Dot, you recognize it. You saw it in the catacombs. On one of the skulls, Dot, the door opens inward. Inside, light, soft, flickering, but real. A single corridor stretches back, lined with niches, small stone shelves, each holding an urn. A nameplate bore, in some cases, nothing at all, just empty slots. You walk past them, trying not to read the names, but a few catch your eye, awaiting return. Recalled, borrowed time. None of them have death dates, just dashes, as if no one ever got around to closing the parentheses of their lives. The corridor ends at a round chamber, a stone circle in the center, a pedestal. On the pedestal, a book bound in soft grey leather, with a lock made of bone. You don't want to open it, but your hand does. It moves on its own, reaching for the clasp. When you touch the lock, it crumbles into dust. Of course, it does. Dot, inside the book, pages and pages of names, dot, all handwritten, all slightly smudged, like they've been written underwater. You flip through until you find a name you know, dot yours, dot next to it. A time, dot not in the past, not even now. A date, an hour in the future. And below that, one word, funeral. Your funeral hasn't happened yet, which means you're not dead yet, but someone wants you to think you are. Someone's been staging these events, weaving them together, pushing you toward this illusion. You close the book and hear the click above a heel behind you. You turn slowly. It's her again. Mary Ellen, this time dressed as a nurse from the 1940s, stark white uniform, clipboard in hand, and a pen that leaks black fluid down her fingers. "You're catching on," she says, amused. "What is this place?" you ask, voice hoarse. She walks in a slow circle around you, tapping her pen against the clipboard. "A waiting room," she says. "A rehearsal, a holding pattern. For what?" She stops in front of you. "For the funeral no one wants to admit is coming." You shake your head. "I don't belong here." "Not yet," she agrees, "but you will, unless you find what's missing." You're starting to see it. The pattern, the graves without bodies, the casket without a name, the ghostly visitors, all pointing you back here. There was supposed to be a funeral, but no one showed up, because there was no body, because you were taken, not dead, not alive, just dot dot, beheld somewhere between. Back in the 1800s, a doctor named Franz Hartmann wrote about a phenomenon he called the interval. He believed some people lingered in a state of pre-death, liminality, not ghosts, not souls, just consciousness floating in a space beneath time. Most scholars dismiss this as spiritualist bunk, but there's a growing fringe movement that says he might have been right, especially after that 1972 experiment where subjects under deep hypnosis claimed to experience waiting rooms between lives. You're in one now, except yours is buried beneath a cemetery. Mary Ellen sets the clipboard down on the pedestal beside the book. "You have a chance," she says, "but not much time. You'll need to go deeper." You glance at the corridor. What's deeper than this? She smiles, dot, and snaps her fingers. The floor opens beneath you. You fall. Not far, just far enough to make your stomach lurch. You land softly, but the chamber you're in now feels different, like stepping into a different memory. The walls pulse, the ground hums. You can smell antiseptic and wet stone and something else, metal. A voice speaks. It's yours, reading something aloud at eulogy. You're hearing your own voice deliver your funeral speeches. If you'd been rehearsing your own goodbye, you scream, you finally let it out, and the walls answer back with every voice. Bet ever been lost in this place? The voices don't stop. They layer and loop, rising and falling like waves against the inside of your skull. Some whisper your name, others recite dates, fragments of lullabies, or half-finished sentences that sound like they were interrupted by death. You cover your ears. It helps about as much as a screen door in a hurricane. You're in a new space now, deeper underground, and it feels older. Pre-everything. The stone walls are jagged and sweat with moisture. Moss grows in thick, veiny tendrils, pulsing faintly, like a living network. The ground beneath your feet is soft, not from dirt, but from layers of clothing, paper, and wilted funeral flowers, left and forgotten. You don't want to think about what's under that. A soft glow pulses at the far end of the cavern. You head toward it, careful not to step on anything that crunches. The light is coming from a pool, still dark, surrounded by gravestones, half sunk into the rock. No names on them this time, just those triangular symbols again. At the edge of the pool is a mirror, large, circular, framed in twisted metal and old wood, like something dragged out of a shipwreck and repurposed for bad dreams. Your reflection isn't right. It's you, but exhausted, soaked, and wrong around the eyes. The pupils are dilated, the iris is pale. You blink, the reflection doesn't. Historians still argue whether mirrors were ever used in ancient burial rites as portals to the other side. Some texts say mourners once turned all mirrors to the wall after a death to stop the soul from getting trapped. Others believed mirrors showed you who would die next. Your reflection tilts its head. You don't. You back away. It steps forward. You run. Because of course you do. Your footsteps echo unnaturally, like you're in a stairwell made of bells. The moss grabs at your ankles, but you shake it off. Something chases, but you don't look back, because every horror movie has warned you what happens when you look back. Eventually, the space narrows into a tunnel. The air changes, again warmer, now humid, tinged with copper. Your lungs sting. The tunnel opens into a small underground chapel. Yes, chapel. Pure like stones arranged in crooked rows. A pulpit with a melted candle, and at the far wall, a stained glass window, except it's underground. No, of sunlight. The window glows anyway, and it's not the usual saints and symbols. It's a scene. You're standing by an open casket, your own. You're not crying. No one is. The people around the casket are faceless. Just shadows in suits and black dresses, flickering as if someone drew them in smoke. A weird fact: during the Victorian era, some families would hold funerals for the living, so-called anticipatory farewells for people who were missing, presumed dead or slowly fading from disease. It was meant to give closure, but not everyone came back to appreciate the gesture. Some said it invited death to hurry up. In the chapel, you find a door tucked behind the pulpit. Heavy wood covered in carved vines. It opens on its own. Of course it does. Inside, stairs. Because, of course, those are involved. You descend. Each step creaks not like wood, but like ribs. It sounds alive. You start to wonder if the stairwell is growing as you move, expanding, stretching to accommodate your descent, and then light again. This time, a library, an underground, candlelit library that seems to go on forever in every direction. Shelves made of bone and brick, no signs, no catalogues, just endless rows of crumblings, leather-bound books, and in the center, her again, Mary Ellen Vale, wearing librarian glasses and a cardigan, somehow still terrifying. She's reading something. You recognize the cover, the book from the mausoleum. She looks up. I thought you'd find this place sooner. You ask her what this is. Memories, she says, not looking up. The ones we're not allowed to forget, or else everything repeats, over and over. You glance at the shelves. All these are people like you, she says, ones whose funerals happened without their bodies, lost in the gap, stories cut off before the ending, unfiled souls. You touch a book. It whispers your name back. Mary Ellen holds out a slip of paper. You take it. It's an obituary, your own, but the details are blank. Only the headline stands. Outgone without goodbye. You ask what you're supposed to do with it. Finish the story, she says. How? She walks past you and runs a finger along a row of volumes. There's a door, she says, at the end of the library. Behind it is the one person who still remembers the truth. Find them. Wake them up before it's too late. You hesitate. And if I can't, she shrugs. Then next time, we'll have to start earlier. She vanishes into the shadows between shelves. Of course she does. You head for the far end, off the library. The candles dim behind you as you pass. A few books vibrate on their shelves like they want to leap off and follow you. One drops and opens on its own. You glance at the page. It's a photo of you standing in the cemetery, smiling. But in the photo, there's a hand on your shoulder. One you don't remember being there. You turn around, no one. The book slams shut. You keep going, and finally, at the edge of the world of books, you find the door, simple, wooden, blackened with smoke, or maybe time. You open it and walk into your childhood bedroom. Same posters, same creaky desk, same nightlight shaped like a moon, still glowing faintly blue. Sitting on the bed is someone you don't recognize, but they know you. They look up and smile softly. I kept it safe, they say, and hold out something small, a piece of bone. No, missing tooth. Yours, the one you lost the night of that funeral, the one where no one told you who died, and suddenly it all rushes back. You remember the house, the whispers, the empty coffin, and the man who looked too much like your father, standing with Mary Ellen, arguing in the rain right before everything went dark. You're not dead, you were taken, and now it's almost time to return. You stare at the tooth in the figure's hand. It's so small, dull white, one edge slightly pink, as if it was only recently dislodged. But you haven't lost a tooth in decades, and definitely not under these circumstances. You reach out and take it. It's warm, and the second your fingers close around it, the world shifts. No sound, no visual wipe, just snap-on the bedroom. Biz gone. Now you're standing in a funeral home, not a spooky, cobwebbed place like in horror films. It's sterile, corporate, muted grays, soft lighting, a neutral scent that's trying hard not to be death, but failing in a kind of beige way. It's the kind of space that plays Enya in the background, and has tissues placed every 6 feet like sadness way stations. The receptionist doesn't see you. No one does. You're not really here. You drift through the room, recognizing things. This is where your aunt was buried, or at least where they said she was. You'll remember being 7, too confused to ask questions, but old enough to feel that something was off. That weird, empty tension. No body in the coffin. Adults telling different versions of the same story. Your mother crying without tears, and Mary Ellen, dressed in funeral black, sitting in the back pew like she belonged there. You remember this room, And you remember the man with no name giving you a peppermint and telling you, one day you'll come back. Don't fight it. You didn't understand then, but you do now. You move through a hallway into a side room where prep happens, the part of the building people don't like to think about, except this one's different. Everything. S. Covered in mirrors. You count them 7 each. A different shape. Square. Victorian. Handheld. Even a full-length floor. Mirror mounted at an odd angle. They're all reflecting different versions of you. One version's older, in a suit, eyes sunken. Another is a child again, holding a tooth. Another is soaking wet mud on your knees, holding a shovel and crying. Another wears the hospital bracelet from when you broke your wrist. Another is asleep, peaceful. That one seems out of place. One reflection speaks. You've been living on a borrowed thread. Its voice is yours, but quieter, tired. They stitched your soul wrong. Too many pieces missing. That's why the funeral never worked. Another reflection adds, and they knew it. That's why they left the casket open. They were waiting for you to climb back in. You want to scream, but instead you ask, who are you? All 7 reflections smile. Versions. One says, attempts, says another, drafts, whispers a third. In 1959, a fringe anthropologist named Celeste Rohn proposed the layered identity theory that humans might, under extreme trauma or ritual influence, fracture into multiple timelines of the self, each existing in its own reality loop. Her idea was dismissed as pseudoscience, but modern quantum metaphysics is starting to entertain something eerily similar. The reflections start fading one by one, until only the sleeping version remains, and then the mirror cracks. You feel the pain in your chest immediately, like your ribs are folding in on themselves. You stumble backward into something soft, a curtain. It parts. Behind it, a room full of caskets, not upright, not buried, just laid out like a showroom. Each one is open. Each one is occupied, with someone who looks almost like you, but not quite. Some are older. Some have features you don't recognize. One has stitches where its mouth should be. Another wears a necklace that you remember owning, but lost at age 13. These aren't clones. They're what's been left behind each time. You got too close to the truth. You've been split across time, buried in pieces. Every time you almost remembered, a new casket was made. A new you laid to rest, unfinished. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian concept of the bar and car soul components that split after death could be applied metaphorically to modern identity. But here, it's not metaphor, it's meat. At the far end of the room is one last casket, closed, wrapped in heavy chains, sealed with wax, and marked with that same triangle. This one hasn't been opened yet. You reach out. A voice stops you. It's a child's voice, the same one who led you earlier. The boy with the candle. He's standing beside the chained casket now, holding a small lantern. I kept this one safe, he says. They don't know about it yet. Who's inside? You ask. You, he says. But a better version. The one they didn't break. You kneel beside the casket. The wax seal pulses faintly, almost like breath. The boy leans closer. You can't open it. Not until the others are buried right. What others? He just points back at the room of caskets. You understand. Finally, you have to finish the funerals. The real ones. The ones that were denied. The ones that left echoes behind. You glance back at the child, but he's gone now. So is the lantern. The only light now is coming from the wax seal. It's flickering like a countdown. You know what to do. You begin walking the row of caskets again, one by one. For each one, you remember something, a specific loss, a forgotten hurt, a lie told to protect you. You whisper names, dates, memories. You give them what they were denied. Recognition, grief, closure. You say goodbye, and as you do, each casket closes and vanishes in a hush of cold air and faint sparks, like a reverse cremation dot. With each one gone, you feel lighter, like parts of yourself are returning from exile. Finally, only one casket remains, yours, the one wrapped in chains. End now. The wax has melted away. You place your hand on the lid. It doesn't feel like wood anymore. It feels like skin. You take a breath and lift. Inside is you. Eyes closed. Peaceful. Peaceful. No signs of trauma. You look like someone who finally got to rest. You touch your own face, and your eyes open. Your reflection smiles and whispers, "Come home." You try to look away, but you can't. The version of you lying in the casket has locked eyes with you, and there's no pulling back. Not with that gaze. It isn't menacing, but calm, pitying, like they know you've come a long way, and still have a stretch to go. Their lips move, no sound. You lean closer. You're not here to bury me, they whisper. You're here to become me. You stumble back, but the casket starts to rise, not as if lifted by machinery, but like the body is buoyant, weightless, standing under its own forgotten power. The eyes remain open, the mouth stays shut. It steps out of the coffin. Your doppelganger tilts its head and begins to walk, not toward you, but past you. As it passes, you catch your own scent, that faint, familiar mix of earth and metal, of old attics and something burning, something just recently dead. You follow. Of course you do. And the moment you do, the room dissolves around you. The caskets, the mirrors, the chains, they fall away like ash. In their place, a forest, not a regular forest dot. Every tree is white, bark like bleached bone, branches thin and reaching, like the grasp of lost souls in a snowstorm. The sky above pulses a soft lavender hue. There's no sun, no moon, just a feeling of dusken, eternal, sleepy in between. The other you walks on, wordless. Through the trees you step over roots that writhe when touched. You pass headstones, half submerged, in the dirt, their names blurred or scratched out. And then you see something ahead, a gathering, chairs, folding ones, like at budget weddings or summer school orientations, all arranged in neat rows in a forest clearing, and every seat is filled. They don't turn as you approach, these guests. They sit perfectly still, dressed for a funeral, but none in black. Earth tones, mostly, browns, greys, even greens, as if they were part of the landscape. At the front is a podium, wood crooked beside. It stands Mary Ellen Vale. Again, you're not surprised anymore. She looks older than she did last time. Not aged weathered, like she's endured something volcanic. Come, she says softly. It's your turn. You want to ask what kind of funeral this is, who these people are, but your voice catches in your throat like a swallowed name. She gestures to the podium. You need to speak, she says, or else you'll be here next time. You approach. The guests still faceless, still unmovingly, in ever so slightly, a silent gravity pulling on your lungs. You take the podium. It's colder than it should be. You open your mouth, and the words come, uninvited. I was buried 3 times. You say I was mourned by people who never knew me. I was grieved by strangers. I had a funeral with no casket, then a casket with no body. I lost myself in echoes, in rituals that never finished. in memories that didn't belong to me. You glance around. The crowd is listening. I've worn too many names. You continue. Borrowed too many things. But tonight, I give them back. You raise the tooth in your palm. The one from earlier. Play still warm. You place it on the podium. It vanishes. A low chime echoes through the forest. One of the faceless guests stands. Then another and another. They each approach you. In turn, one leaves behind a ribbon. Another places a stone. One presses their forehead to yours and breathes out something like a sigh and a song at once. They're giving you pieces of yourself, little fragments, not just memories, but weight, anchors. For a moment, you feel like you're here, really here, a mainstream historical fact in pre-Christian Celtic rites. A funeral wasn't complete until the soul had been walked home, guided through a ritual maze, a symbolic death and return path lined with silent watchers. Those who skipped the ritual were said to walk forever, hollow. You've been walking a long time. Now, maybe, the path is closing. The final guest approaches, taller, different. They hand you a folded piece of paper. You open it. It's a letter, in your handwriting, dated. 5 days from now, it begins. To whoever finds this body, you crumple it, not in defiance, in recognition. You've been here too long. You glance back to Mary Ellen. She nods once, the faintest approval, and the trees begin to move, not in the wind, but of their own will, rearranging, pulling apart, opening a path where there wasn't one before. A glowing trail, dot, you're double the one from the coffin is standing at the start of it, and they're smiling now, just a little. You walk toward them. You don't look back. You hear a voice, maybe Mary Ellen's, maybe your own, say, "Don't worry. The funeral's almost over. Just one more thing." As you step into the light, the path beneath your feet shifts to gravel, dot, then pavement. You know this place. It's the cemetery. Again, but different. Quiet. At peace. You're holding a lantern now. You're not sure when that happened. Ahead of you, one last mausoleum. Its door slightly open. Inside, you see a shape wrapped in fabric, seated upright, not breathing, not alive, not hostile, just waiting. You kneel, and finally you understand what's left to do. You kneel before the shrouded figure. It doesn't move, doesn't breathe, but there's a feeling like static electricity in the air right before a thunderclap. The scent of dust and crushed petals clings to the doorway. You hold the lantern higher, and the soft golden light reveals delicate stitching along the figure's wrappings, intricate, reverent. You've seen these symbols before, on the wax seal, on the mirrors, triangles nested inside triangles, some kind of geometric fingerprint, maybe a map, or maybe just a reminder. You've always belonged to something much older than yourself. You swallow, reach out, touch the cloth that's warm. Of course it is. When you peel back the first layer, you're not sure what to expect. Remains, perhaps, or something skeletal and curled. But instead, it's like looking into a mirror again. Another. You, eyes closed, face calm, hands resting on its chest. But this one is perfect. Not flawless, but whole. You can tell. There's no wound in the soul, no missing name or lost voice. They've never wandered, never split. This is the one you were supposed to be. Had the funeral gone right? Had grief known how to finish? The air around you thickens. You blink, and suddenly you're not in the mausoleum anymore. You're at a long wooden table, alone, except no, not quite. Seated across from you are 6 other versions of yourself. Again, you sigh. We're really doing this again. One version smirks. The oldest among them, almost done. Just have to vote. On what? On who gets to stay? A pause. You look at each of them. The younger one with the scraped knees and shadowed eyes. The one dressed in a hospital gown, still twitching slightly. The silent one with their mouth stitched shut. The version in a black suit who smells faintly of lilies and wet earth. Another version blindfolded. And the last, the lantern bearer, eyes burning with calm. Only one gets to return, the eldest says. One version walks out, the rest stay buried, you scoff. And if I say no, the lantern bearer leans forward, then none of us leave. Right, the logic of the dead is firm. Why me? You ask, softer now. Why am I the one split like this? The blindfolded one speaks, voice high, clear, because you were the only one who asked the question, and that, you realize, is all it took. A crack in the glass, one thread tugged too hard. You weren't content to let it go. You had to know who was in the casket. You had to see. Historians still argue. Murmurs the suit-wearing self. Whether grief splits the mourner or the mourned. Whether it's the dead who fracture or the ones left behind. You get it now. You were both the mourner and the mourned. You weren't just grieving someone. You were grieving you, the versions of yourself who never made it, the paths you abandoned, the dreams you buried without ritual or marker. You sigh. All right, let's vote. They all look at each other, but no one raises a hand. Instead, one by one, they vanish. No pain, no resistance, just understanding, a mutual surrender until you're alone. Again, the long table is gone. You're kneeling once more in the mausoleum, hand still resting on the shrouded version of yourself. But something's changed. The wrappings are gone. You're staring into your own eyes. They open, and this time they stay open. The figure exhales, and for the first time, do inhale, deeply, a breath like you haven't taken in years. You're not watching anymore. You're inside. This is your body now. Whole returned. Whole returned. And just outside the mausoleum, you hear something beautiful. Rain, soft, rhythmic, a fringe detail. In some rural Japanese funeral customs, the sound of rain during a burial is seen as a sign of acceptance, washing away. A soul being welcomed home. You stand, step outside, and there it is. The cemetery is quiet, washed in pale gold light. The graves no longer shift. The trees no longer whisper. Even the crooked angel from before now stands straight, wings wide and proud. You walk, not floating, not weightless, real, solid. Each step crunches gravel underfoot, and you marvel at the sound. So mundane, but it anchors you in a way all the strange magic never could. As you pass familiar markers, some from earlier in the night, some long forgotten, you whisper the names of those you remember, those you lost, friends, family, versions of yourself. Each one feels like a stitch being pulled tight, repair, redemption. You approach the gates. They're open now. Of course they are. You step through on, find yourself not in a street, not in a bedroom, but in a quiet room. A chapel, perhaps. Wooden pews. Stained glass windows showing abstract images of light and shadow. A single candle flickering on the altar, and sitting in the front row is Mary Ellen Vale. She turns as you enter, and she smiles. You finally made it, she says. You nod. Am I done? Almost just one thing left. You walk to her. She holds out her hand. You take it. It's warm. She presses something into your palm. It's the tooth, the same one. Again, still warm. You glance down at it. What am I supposed to do with this, you ask? Mary Ellen shrugs. Bury it, or don't. Either way, you've earned your rest. You consider that don't, then walk to the altar. Place the tooth beside the candle, and let it go. The flame flickers, then set it down. STEADS. And for the first time in what feels like centuries, so do you. You don't turn around right away. You just stand at the altar, letting the candlelight soak into your skin. Every inch of you hums like a tuning fork that's finally settled. There's no crowd behind you now. No ghosts, no flickering shadows. Just the stillness of completion. You glance back eventually. Mary Ellen Vale is gone. Only her empty seat remains. Dust already gathering where she sat. You wonder briefly if she was ever really there, if she was something summoned from your own memory, or guilt, or both. But there's no point in wondering. You don't need to anymore. You step down from the altar. Your legs don't ache. Your heart doesn't race. You're not floating between dimensions, or echoing inside borrowed time. You're walking again plainly, quietly, fully present. You push open the chapel doors and step out, and just like that, it's night again. Real night. Crickets chirp. The air smells of wet leaves and cooling stone. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then quiets. The cemetery stretches out before you, but it's no longer hostile. You walk, gravel underfoot. No whispers, no whispers. No spares, no shifting gravestones, just you. And then something odd. You see a figure ahead, sitting on one of the benches, by the oldest mausoleum. Not threatening, not ghostly, just sitting there, as if waiting for a bus. As you approach, you recognize them. You, not the twisted versions, not the stitched or blindfolded selves, just ... You, dressed casually, looking tired but peaceful. They glance up, hey, they say. You nod, hey, you made it through. You smile faintly. Looks like it. They pat the bench beside them. You sit. For a while, there's nothing but the sound of wind rustling through the branches. Then they say, you know, this whole thing started before you even stepped into the cemetery. You nod. I've felt that, yeah. Remember when you found that old letter in your grandma's house? Of course you do. You were 12. The envelope had no address, no stamp. Just the phrase, return to sender, return to self. That was the beginning. Your other self says, a mainstream historical fact. In 19th century Europe, spiritualist movements gained traction not just from grief, but from guilt. People wanted to talk to the dead, not just to say goodbye, to ask for forgiveness. And maybe that's what you were doing all along. Asking, hoping, and finally letting go. You exhale. A bird calls in the trees. Your double stands. You're not going to remember all of this. You raise a brow. Convenient. They grin. But you'll feel different. That stays. You leave them. They start to walk away. A path that winds out of the cemetery and into the trees. You watch them go, not with sadness, but with a kind of affection, like seeing an old friend board a train dot. Then you notice something. New dot your hands. There's dirt under your fingernails. Fresh, you check your sleeves. Grass stains. And there's something in your pocket. You reach in. A note, folded dot, written in your handwriting. It says, bury it deep, but not too deep, in case you need to dig it back up. A little cryptic, a little annoying. Very you. You pocket. Put the note again and walk to the edge of the cemetery. There's a gate you don't remember. Passing through before, it's newer. Black iron. No rust. It swings open easily. Beyond it, a dirt road, lit by dim lanterns, leading toward a sleepy little town you half remember from childhood. The kind of place where porches creak and old women still leave pennies on windowsills to keep spirits away. You start down the path, and now it's not spooky. Now it's home. As you walk, you realize the tooth, the one you left behind. Not in your hand anymore, but you feel it. Not a weight, more like balance. It was never about the object. It was the gesture, the surrender. You reach the edge of the woods and glance back one last time. The cemetery is smaller now, just a patch of green behind you. A few crooked stones, and that white angel statue still watching from her perch. You raise your hand in farewell. She doesn't wave back, but somehow you know she sees you. A fringe detail in ancient Persian funerals. Mourners believed that angels would only reveal themselves to those who'd faced themselves entirely. No masks, no lies, no borrowed faces. Only then would the angel open the final gate. And maybe that's what happened tonight. You walked the long way back to yourself. You walk on. The town is quiet, but there's a porch light on dot. And for some reason, that's all you need to know. You pause at the edge of the road, right where the worn path from the cemetery turns into asphalt. Gravel crunches softly underfoot, and the smell of lilacs drifts in from somewhere near by an expected but welcome. The porch light glows like a lighthouse, warm, familiar, not beckoning, just steady, like it's always been on, waiting for you to notice. You step forward. Each footfall now feels grounded in a way that the entire graveyard journey didn't. There's no ethereal float, no dreamy fog curling at your ankles. You are fully present. Every breath brings you deeper into your own skin. As you pass a crumbling stone wall, you notice small objects nestled into its crevices. A doll's shoe, a bird's skull, a tiny brass key, offerings, warnings. Norima, you've passed this place before. In dreams you never quite remembered, and now it welcomes you back like an old friend. You hear the soft tap of a rocking chair before you see it. On that porch ahead, someone is sitting, gently swaying. You expect a ghost, a visions, some final manifestation of your fractured soul. But instead it's a man in overalls, elderly, with silver hair and a face like crumpled leather. He raises a cup of something steaming as you approach. Took your time, he drawls. Had to take the scenic route, you reply. He grins. They all do. He gestures to the chair next to him. You sit. It creaks agreeably. From this view, you can see the entire cemetery's mall and quiet in the distance, like a miniature replica of itself. You look whole, the man says. I think I am. Good. The tea he hands you tastes like dirt and honey, earthy, healing. You buried it. You nod. You know what it was. No, not really. He chuckles. That's the trick. You don't have to. A mainstream historical fact in ancient Celtic rites. Mourners would bury symbolic items, broken blades. Cracked cups to represent the release of grief that couldn't be spoken aloud. Words often failed. Ritual didn't. You glance at the man again. Do I know you? Some way. Sure, he says. You ever dream about a dog with two shadows? Yeah, that was me. Of course it was. You rock slowly with him. Not many people make it to this part, he adds. Most get stuck wandering in circles. Others find comfort in the haunt. The haunt. He gestures vaguely. The dream version of grief. The replay button. That place where you keep telling the story wrong, just to stay in it. You sip your tea. Feels like I've done that. You did. We all do. But not forever. The lantern on the porch gutter flutters with moths. You ask, is this real? The man shrugs. Define real. Touchable, lasting, not melting the second I wake up. He nods. Then yes, this part's real. Realer than the graveyard, even. You sit in silence a moment longer. Then you ask, so what now? He leans forward. You rest. You live. You tell the story when it wants to be told. But you don't chase the dead anymore. You feel that settle in your chest like a soft stone. You were always chasing someone else's face, a body that never got buried right. But now you understand. The funeral without a body was your own. You just didn't know it yet. The body was never missing. It was just waiting, buried too deep, unmarked, forgotten by every version of yourself that didn't want to admit what you'd lost. Your own voice, your own direction, your own center, a fringe tidbit in parts of rural Romania. It's believed that if a person dies unfulfilled, their soul splits and haunts multiple people at once, appearing in dreams, moments of déjà vu, or quiet hallucinations. That explains the versions of yourself. You weren't broken. You were spread thin. But now, you've gathered. You sit for a long time beside the man in the rocking chair. He hums a tune without words. It's ancient, older than speech. And the moths keep circling like stars that forgot to climb back into the sky. Eventually, you feel your eyes grow heavy. You're almost at the end, the man says, rising slowly. You'll know when to wake up. You stand, too. He opens the screen door, holds it for you. Inside, a small room, cozy, a cot with a hand-stitched quilt, a dresser with a cracked mirror, a dog sleeping soundly on the rug, its two shadows curled beside it. You smile. You gonna vanish when I close the door? You ask. The man chuckles. Only if you stop needing me. You nod, walk inside, close the door. You sit on the cot. The dog doesn't wake, but wags its tail once. The room smells like cedar and candle wax and home. You lie down, the quilt is warm. You close your eyes. Outside, the wind whispers through the trees low like a lullaby. Sleep doesn't come fast, but it comes honestly. You lie there on the cot, the quilt tucked under your chin, the dog's slow breathing syncing up with yours. Every now and then, a floorboard creaks somewhere in the house, but it's not unsettling. It's just the sound of something old settling into peace. You can still hear the cemetery faintly, not through sound, but memory. That cold hush, that endless looping trail. But now it's like recalling a dream after coffee. The emotions linger, but they're softened at the edges, dulled by distance. You let your fingers drift across the quilt's surface. Hand-stitched, yes, but stitched with what? Looking closely, the patterns are oddly familiar. A baseball diamond, a tooth, a cracked hourglass, a keyhole, an eye, your eye. You smile, just a little, because, of course, the quilt is stitched from your own symbols, your stories, the things you dropped, lost, buried, and reclaimed over the years. You once read, maybe in a dream, maybe in school, that ancient Anatolian tribes would bury personal belongings with the deceased, not just for ritual, but as a map. They believed the soul might need to find its way back in the dark. The objects were markers, Touchstones. Maybe this quilt is your map, not out of the graveyard, but back to yourself. Outside, the wind's picking up. Rain taps the windows in soft, uncertain rhythms. Not a storm, just sky washing, cleansing. You wonder if the man in the rocking chair is still out there, or if he's gone now that you've accepted the silence. Silence, you whisper into the quilt. Finally, because it's been years, hasn't it? Since everything got so loud, buzzing thoughts, the wrong words spoken at wrong times, the constant pacing inside your skull. But here, the quiet is soft, forgiving. A scholarly debate has long stirred among linguists, whether silence itself counts as a kind of language. Some say no language requires structure. Others argue silence is structure, the shape left by what isn't said, the pause that gives words their power. You close your eyes again, and this time something different happens. You don't fall asleep, you fall inward. You are no longer lying on the cot. You are the cot, the fabric, the air between the boards. You are the hush in the walls, the echo of someone breathing in another room, and you're safe. For the first time in longer than you can remember, you don't need to brace for a twist. No creature at the window, no mirror turning on you, no whispers from the floorboards, just you. Hold doesn't last forever. Eventually, the dream begins to peel back like mist from a lake at sunrise, but not Jarringly, like someone gently pulling the covers down. Pews sit up, the dog is gone. The room is brighter now, not daylight exactly, but some halfway glow that suggests time is no longer part of the equation. You stand, stretch, check the mirror. Still you, still whole. You open the door, and the house has changed again. Not darker, not scarier, just emptier, quieter. You walk through it. No haunting, no riddles, no more tests, just walls, wood, dust, time. And then you reach the back door. The same black iron gate stands outside. It's open this time. You step through it and back into the cemetery. It should feel like a regression, a trap, but instead it feels like goodbye. You walk past the graves, reading the names again. They don't whisper anymore. They don't follow. They just exist. Stone markers for people who once were, and now are not. And then you see your own grave. It's still there, still bearing your name. But something's different. The ground is no longer disturbed. The dirt has settled. The flowers that once rotted at the base have been replaced with fresh white chrysanthemums. Someone's been here. You kneel, touch the stone, not to mourn, not to fix anything, just to say thank you, because in some strange way, this marker, this fiction of your death, brought you back to life. A fringe historical footnote. During Japan's Edo period, certain poets would commission their own tombstones while still alive, often inscribing them with jokes, apologies, or future predictions. They believed writing your end allowed your real story to begin. You smile because you understand that now your grave isn't an ending. It's a karma. You stand and begin walking again, following the winding path toward the exit. No more figures in the mist. No more riddles on headstones. No more needing to dig. You've already buried what needed to be buried. You're not trying to escape anymore. You're just going home. And even if you don't quite know where that is yet, the peace is real. It stretches out ahead like the dawn. You leave the cemetery behind without looking back, not because you're afraid of what might follow. Nothing is following anymore, but because you've finally learned something rare, something hard to hold on to. When it's time to stop carrying the dead, you simply walk forward. The path dips into a soft meadow. There are lanterns, now paper ones, floating above the grass like lazy fireflies. You can't tell where the light comes from inside them. No flame, just a warm glow, like something remembered with kindness. Ahead you see a gathering, not a crowd, just people. Some sit on benches carved from fallen logs. Some lounge on picnic blankets, arms folded under their heads. A few are reading. One is sketching. A small girl tosses flower petals into a breeze that somehow knows how to catch them. They don't notice you at first, or maybe they do and just don't need to react. There's no ceremony here, no ghosts leaping from trees, no trials. Just stillness. Presence. One man nods as you pass. He has the same eyes as you. You nod back. This isn't some afterlife or final test. This is something older than all that. The soul's porch. A resting point on the long, long walk home. You take a seat on an empty bench. The wood is cool, carved with initials, some yours, some not. You trace them with your finger. A lazy ritual, half aware, like playing with sand on the beach. You wonder how many versions of yourself have sat here. You hear muse, gentle, distant, like a lullaby sung underwater. No melody you recognize, but something in it tugs at your ribs. A song you haven't remembered yet. The girl with the petals approaches. She says nothing, just hands you one, a pale purple bloom, crinkled and fragrant. Then she points behind you. You turn. A tree stands at the edge of the clearing, wide, gnarled, familiar. Carved into the bark is a sentence. You survived the place where your name was buried. No fanfare, no burst of light, just that quiet truth. A mainstream historical fact. The practice of naming the dead was sacred in many indigenous American tribes. Saying the name aloud during ceremony wasn't to mourn but to return identity to the spirit. You've done the same for yourself. You're not a ghost anymore. And with that, the weight finally lifts. It doesn't fly off, doesn't shatter like glass. It just dissolves, like salt in warm water, like fog at sunrise, that the lanterns above you drift higher. The clearing begins to fade not into darkness, but into something quieter than light, and in that soft unraveling, you feel the wind down begin. The air grows warmer. The grass beneath you stretches gently, like the earth is taking a slow breath. The figures around you begin to blur at the edges, not vanishing, but softening, like memories at the edge of sleep. You stretch out across the bench, arms behind your head, and let your gaze follow the path of the lanterns as they rise. One by one, they drift into the sky, slow, deliberate, not in any rush. The purple petal still rests in your palm. You fold your fingers around it, not to protect it, just to hold it for a little longer. The breeze carries with it the scent of moss, old paper, and something faintly citrusy. Your eyes grow heavy. You blink once, then again, slower this time. Each blink takes longer to return from. There's no more story to tell tonight. No more riddles to solve. No footsteps behind you. The tree still stands at your back, its bark warm against the fading chill. Somewhere nearby, you hear the distant creak of a rocking chair, and then just for a second you feel that other version of you, the one who never needed to run, the one who always knew how to rest. They smile, you smile, and sleep takes you, not like a door closing, but like a hand brushing hair from your face. Welcome home.